Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing great. The topic that I'm going to explain today is jaundice. So, starting with jaundice, what is jaundice? Jaundice is the yellowish discoloration of the skin and sclera. It is also called as icterus. Jaundice has higher affinity for elastic tissue. That is the reason why you see jaundice in sclera, because sclera of eye has higher elastic tissue. What do you see in eyes in general physical examination? You see two important things. One is anemia or pallor, whatever you like to say it, and the other is icterus, which is jaundice. Anemia is seen in lower palpebral conjunctiva, whereas icterus is seen in upper bulbar conjunctiva. Okay, this is important for physical examination. Upper limit of bilirubin in blood, it is 1.3 milligram per deciliter, and if it is more than 2 milligram per deciliter, then jaundice becomes evident. Okay, that is, you are able to see yellowish discoloration. Moving on to obstructive jaundice. What is obstructive jaundice? As the name tells, obstructive jaundice is any obstruction in the passage of bilirubin because of which it is causing jaundice. What is the type of bilirubin that is raised in obstructive jaundice? It is conjugated bilirubin. Okay, because the problem here is not in conjugation. The problem is in the passage of that bilirubin that already has been conjugated. Okay, so basically what happens, that this is liver, right? So liver releases bile salts, bile pigments, and they go from this common hepatic duct into the gallbladder, where it is stored there for a while, in which there is some concentration that is happening, water getting absorbed in the gallbladder, and then after some time this bilirubin is excreted through the common bile duct. This common bile duct will join with the pancreatic duct, and then it will, all of these secretions, they will get excreted in the second part of the duodenum, as you can see in the figure. Okay, so now what is happening in obstructive jaundice? This whole passage, there will be some problem in the passage somewhere, because of which this whole travel that this bile salts and bile pigment has to do, all this traveling thing, it will get halted. Okay, and they will lead to accumulation, and they will get accumulated here, and they will not be able to go down. So now here is another figure. I will explain to you the causes of obstructive jaundice. All right, as you all know that obstructive jaundice will be some problem in this whole of this passage. Okay, whenever you have to list the causes of anything, you just start from one point, either start from the top or start from the bottom, and then move in the opposite direction. Like if you're starting from the top, you are listing all the causes, then you will go down and you'll try to list the causes in this sequence, and if you are starting from the bottom, you'll try to go up whenever you are listing the causes. Okay, so I'll start with the gallbladder. What can be the cause in the gallbladder that will lead to obstruction and that will cause obstructive jaundice? The one of the most important reasons for obstructive jaundice is gallstones. Okay, so whenever there are gallstones, what will happen? This, all the bile pigments, they will not be able to get excreted. Okay, moving on, next we have this passage, right? There can be problem in this passage. What could it be? Like any kind of stricture, inflammatory stricture, like some kind of infection that has happened in this passage, and it will then lead to inflammatory strictures. Okay, moving on, it can be tumor of the main common bile duct or maybe hepatic duct. Okay, and then it could be tumor of the head of the pancreas, because this head of the pancreas is containing the end part of the common bile duct, which is the passage of the bile salts and bile pigments, bilirubin, the whole bile. See, this is the tail of the pancreas. If there is tumor of the tail of the pancreas, do you think it will lead to it will hamper the passage of this whole bile? No, because it is not concerned with the passage of the bile. So only the tumor of the head of the pancreas will be responsible for causing obstructive jaundice, and not of the tail or the body or the neck of the pancreas, because they are not concerned with the passage. The next important cause is liver fluke. Now imagine that there is a liver fluke in this passage. What will happen? It will again cause obstruction. This bile will not be able to pass. Okay, now another important cause is extrahepatic biliary atresia. Now, what is extrahepatic biliary atresia? It is basically when there is atresia of this CBD. There's a classification in which you classify it based on what part of this whole CBD, hepatic duct or cystic duct, what part is involved. But we are not going to go that deep. We are just concerned with obstructive jaundice at this point. So extrahepatic biliary atresia, it is seen in case of neonates. Okay, this you will be studying in pediatrics. Here I have listed all the causes, which are gallstones, then CA, head of pancreas, tumors of bile duct, inflammatory strictures, liver fluke, and extrahepatic biliary atresia. Just a little bit about this. It is seen in case of neonates and it causes neonatal jaundice. Now moving on, here you can see I have written obstructive jaundice. Oh god. Okay, obstructive jaundice is extrahepatic cholestasis. So there is problem in something that is outside of the liver, like this is liver. In obstructive jaundice there is no problem in the liver is all right, but there's problem in something which is outside of the liver. Extrahepatic cholestasis, extrahepatic stasis of the bile. Stasis means stagnancy. Okay, here is this image that I've drawn to make you understand it in a better way. What are these? These are hepatocytes. Okay, and this is also hepatocyte, this is also hepatocyte. What is this? This is blood. Okay, and this is bile. Normally what happens that these hepatocytes, they lead to conjugation of bilirubin. Okay, this is conjugated bilirubin and that gets excreted into the bile. Same is happening here, same is happening here, and then this bile, it's getting transported. This is actually bile canaliculi. Okay, now what I've drawn here, what is this? This is, let's say this is a gallstone. Okay, this gallstone is causing obstruction in the passage of the bile, or you can say, you can consider it anything, like any kind of obstruction, maybe some kind of liver fluke. So what will happen now? Bile will not able to go here, so there will be this backflow of the bile and this bile will go from here into the blood. So what is happening that this bile will go into the blood, and this bile is what kind of bilirubin? This is actually conjugated. So this conjugated is getting into the blood and not the unconjugated one. Why? Because the liver is absolutely normal, no? So liver is responsible for conjugation. So conjugation is happening. Only the problem is that this conjugated bilirubin is not able to go into the duodenum and it's getting blocked because of something, because of any reasons that I have listed here. So now this bilirubin is getting into the blood, and this is what? This is conjugated bile, conjugated bilirubin that is now present in your blood. So what will you have in your blood? You will have raised bilirubin, and that will be conjugated bilirubin. You have raised bile salts and bile acids because this bile salts and bile acids is again in this bile canaliculi. Okay, and this will be going into the blood because of this obstruction. And there will be raised cholesterol. Where did this cholesterol come from? Basically, this whole bile is made up of cholesterol. So ultimately, cholesterol is also getting accumulated in your blood. This raised cholesterol will lead to xantholasma. As you can see, this is the image of this patient having these yellowish things on the upper eyelid. What is this? This is xantholasma. Okay, and there will be low vitamin. All the fat soluble vitamins will be low. What are the fat soluble vitamins? A, D, E, K. Why are they low? Because fat soluble vitamins in the intestine, like when you have eaten food, okay, this is stomach, right? And here is food. Food will go into the duodenum and then into the jejunum and ileum, and in the intestine, this food, whatever fat soluble vitamin there is, will get absorbed by bile. Okay, so now there is no bile. What will happen? There will be no absorption of fat soluble vitamins. There will be no change in the quantity of water soluble vitamins, which are vitamin B and vitamin C, but these will be decreased. Okay, all of these will be decreased, whereas these will be normal because they are water soluble. They don't need bile for their absorption. Here I have written a test which is Vandenberg test. This helps you to differentiate between conjugated and unconjugated bilirubin. Okay, before telling you this thing, I want you to understand that All of these are causes of obstructive jaundice, but these are not the only reasons which cause conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, because there are several other reasons also, but they are not categorized into obstructive jaundice, like alcoholic hepatitis. What happens in alcoholic hepatitis? It is a kind of hepatic jaundice in which you have both conjugated as well as unconjugated. Okay, there is conjugated also, unconjugated also. There are two syndromes that I would like you to know. One is Dubin-Johnson, one is Rotor syndrome. Both of these, they have conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, but that is not the reason for obstructive jaundice, because there is no obstruction. What happens that in Dubin-Johnson, there are these certain transporters. These transporters are responsible for excretion of this conjugated bile into the bile canaliculi. Okay, but in Dubin-Johnson, these transporters are defective, because of which this bile is getting accumulated, and this one that is getting accumulated is conjugated. So ultimately, you have conjugated hyperbilirubinemia in Dubin-Johnson and Rotor, but this is not due to obstruction in the passage. This is because of a defective transporter. So just remember that there are other causes also which cause conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, but they are not the reasons for obstructive jaundice, because they don't cause obstruction. Moving back to Vandenberg test, it helps you to differentiate so conjugated versus unconjugated bilirubin. What happens that you take a sample, that sample is urine sample, it is having either conjugated or unconjugated or both or nothing. So you want to test what is in this sample. Okay, you combine this sample with Vandenberg reagent, and what does this Vandenberg reagent has? It has diazotized sulfonilic acid. Now it will lead to either direct positive, indirect positive, or biphasic reaction. Direct positive is that when you mix these two things, it will lead to purple color. So this is sample plus Vandenberg region, and this is the purple color. It means direct positive. What does it mean? It means that this sample is having conjugated bilirubin in it. Whereas indirect positive is that, suppose you do this, you combine this sample with Vandenberg reagent, but there is no color. So when there is no color, what will you do? You add alcohol. After adding alcohol, you get this purple color. It means that this is having unconjugated bilirubin. But suppose that you are having purple color, but when you add alcohol, this purple color intensifies. That will be called as biphasic reaction. When the color intensifies, what does it mean? It means it was having conjugated as well as unconjugated bilirubin.